The walls of this home in the leafy Johannesburg suburb of 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗆 were once lined with contemporary South African art, the rooms filled with music. All that's left are memories and the charred remnants of an unstoppable fire.
It was the most terrible shock in our lives, but one shouldn't have to go through this.
Now, in a city already paranoid about security, anxiety is spreading in its northern suburbs.
High walls, electric fences, armed response, fancy alarms. You think you've got it covered, right?
But fire is unpredictable, menacing and devastating. Even more so if it's arson.
We definitely live with a false sense of security.
In just 12 months, there have been at least 11 suspicious house fires in a relatively concentrated area. Tracy Pennington's modern Hurlingham home was hit in November last year when they were out of town. Their safe space burnt to the ground.
So destructive, setting it on fire. And it's amazing that so many months later that I feel the way that I do. I just had my moments.
With nothing stolen from the property, Tracy is convinced the suspect was no amateur and his sole purpose was to burn down the house. This is possibly the only CCTV footage of a suspect. It shows a man attempting to break in on the night of the fire.
We have no footage of him around the house. He cut the cameras and he would have to be on the roof. We know that when our siren went off on the first alarm activation, he cut it.
Annie Hesselink is a criminologist and criminal profiler.
That tells me he can operate in terms of surveillance. Maybe he has a history in working in the security field where he knows how to disable them and not to be detected.
Once inside the Hurlingham house, the exclusive footage shows he acted alone. You can see him walking up and down the passage.
We can track him walking directly from the kitchen where he broke in through the skylight straight into our main bedroom. And we know from investigations that he set 3 fires in the main bedroom, in the bathroom, and in our dressing room. Again, it's just hard to fathom that somebody would do that to somebody else.
In the world of criminal profiling, the suspect will fall into one of 2 categories.
We distinguish between an arsonist, that is an act, as a criminal act, versus pyromania, which is a psychiatric disorder. That's why that's enjoyment of the fire.
But were the 11 suspicious house fires mere coincidence or the work of a lone fire starter? We found similarities and clear discrepancies. Of the 11, 7 of the targeted properties were not occupied when the fires started. All the structures are not architecturally the same. Some had basic security, while others had advanced systems.
I reckon that within a 5-kilometer radius, most of the houses were burned.
Since last year, community security activist 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗆𝗆 has maintained the fires are connected.
I don't think that these are random houses that he's chosen. You can't just arrive here like a smash and grab. So it's well thought out, well planned.
I think there is a pattern of target selection, specifically one population or a class, a social class of people here, where the modus operandi is not always the same, but the purpose of destruction and damage and the fire setting, the end result is always the same.
𝗀𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗆 took us to some of the more recent scenes.
The houses I've been to are massive fires. It doesn't, not just like a little fire.
This double-story Houghton estate home was burnt down in April, just weeks earlier. The blaze ripped through the roof and shattered the windows, leaving only the soot-covered walls and mere memories of the life once lived here.
The trauma is still palpable and the family refuses to speak because they just don't know how they're going to pick up the pieces.
The suspect locked the elderly homeowner inside, set the house alight and left.
So old man was at the bottom shouting he had been beaten up, but he was behind the burglar proofing. They couldn't get him out.
Fortunately, security and neighbors managed to free the elderly man. He was in ICU weeks after the attack and is still recovering.
The moment this perpetrator walks into the house, he's got power and control over the house, over the occupants of the house.
And it's not necessarily about even stealing anything from these homes.
It's about a fascination and obsession, immediate gratification of the hurt and the damage, where it might be linked to hatred, to jealousy, with definitely underlying mental disorder, psychological disorder, antisocial personality.
𝗀𝗵𝗶𝘀 believes the fire starter spends time in some of the homes and possibly even stays to watch the blaze.
Sometimes he eats, sometimes he drinks, sometimes he wheezes in the kitchen. So this particular house, he actually took apples and some wine, and he sat in the neighbor's property on that side, and he ate the apples and he drank the wine, and I think he did that while he was watching the fire from the neighbor's property. And they identified those apples and the wine because this old man apparently had bought those apples and wine.
But the March Houghton Estate incident wasn't the first time elderly homeowners were brutally assaulted. A Bryanston couple, still reeling from the attack in their home last December, agreed to an interview on condition of anonymity.
Well, we are terrified. I sometimes dream about this incident, and so does my wife.
The couple were physically attacked by a single suspect who ironically sprayed them with a fire extinguisher. After demanding jewelry and cash the couple didn't have in the house, the attack took a sinister turn.
I saw that he had a firelighter, lit the firelighter. He then went past me saying, "The fire will kill me and he must now go."
The couple were left for dead while flames engulfed their home. Again, this suspect was a lone fire starter, but it appears in this case the first intent was possibly theft. Arson cases are not uncommon in South Africa, with 3,225 incidents reported between April and December 2021.
This crime is on the rise in South Africa. The prevalence is most probably that it's a male that is involved in this type of crime.
But that's not to say it involves the same male suspect.
It seems obvious these fires in most cases were started by someone. The question is why? It gets even trickier when you think about the modus operandi.
We are looking at maybe much wider than just a single person with the same modus operandi.
A pyromaniac doesn't explain necessarily all the fires.
Not necessarily. It has a ripple effect on people taking advantage of the situation. It might spur other individuals to commit arson for insurance purposes.
The motive could even have been a double criminal act, the thieves wanting to destroy evidence after a burglary. The art and music-filled house in Dunkeld had been in Jocelyn Fox's family since 1959.
It was a wonderful life until these people came in and they burnt it down out of the blue.
Her daughter, Jackie Fox, says the family is still trying to make sense of it all.
The destruction was extreme. I mean, there's not much left of your home.
It's absolutely, absolutely traumatic because it's something where it's, you know, you can't replace these things.
It's a substantial financial loss, and Jackie suspects foul play.
I have a passion for contemporary South African art, and all that art has gone and left before the fire, without question.
Do you think the motive was the theft of what's missing?
Yes, the motive was the art. This was a burglary.
And if that's the case, this fire was an attempted cover-up. But understanding the science of fire goes beyond just setting it. Former fire chief Wynand Engelbrecht attended 6 of the fires in question.
You can't possibly destroy all the evidence by creating a fire. There are always clues left.
But with different insurance companies, a network of fire investigators, and a number of security companies working in silos, the jury is out on whether it's a definite trend.
2 or 3 swallows don't make a summer. I'm convinced that there's no trend here yet.
I don't know, Bongani, I'm as confused as everybody else. And this is a challenge amongst the security companies and the police to do their job.
So many unanswered questions and no clear suspects. Homeowners are now on edge. Incidents appear on the rise, with a suspicious fire having been reported in this area every 2 weeks since the beginning of March.
As we were filming this story, this home was burnt down. The owners have barely recovered from the shock. The entire bottom section of this house has been completely burnt out.
The suspect appears to have removed the front door key, essentially trapping the elderly couple sleeping upstairs. Luckily, they managed to escape through the garage while flames engulfed their home.
This is actually quite traumatic, even when lives are not lost.
You have to start all over again. And that is very devastating. And the community live in fear because no one knows who's next.